The gym thrummed with energy, a vibrant pulse of effort and ambition echoing through its cavernous space. Rows of polished treadmills whirred under pounding feet, dumbbells clinked rhythmically against racks, and the faint hum of upbeat music wove through the air, tying it all together. This wasn't just any gym, it was Peak Pulse, a sprawling fitness mecca in the heart of the city, where beginners chasing their first push-up shared space with professional athletes honing their craft. The walls, lined with floor-to-ceiling mirrors, reflected sweat and determination under the stark glow of fluorescent lights. On this particular afternoon, the gym was at its liveliest, a mosaic of grunts, laughter, and the occasional clang of a dropped weight. Among the regulars was Ethan Caldwell, a personal trainer whose reputation preceded him like a storm cloud. At 32, Ethan was undeniably skilled, with a physique carved from years of discipline and a knack for designing workouts that delivered results. But his talent was overshadowed by a need for dominance. He wore the tightest tank tops, flaunted his biceps at every opportunity, and spoke in a booming voice that demanded attention. Ethan didn't just train clients, he performed for them, turning every session into a spectacle. His sharp tongue was his weapon of choice, often aimed at those he deemed less capable. Newcomers, in particular, were easy prey for his sarcastic quips, which he delivered with a grin that dared anyone to challenge him. Most gym members tolerated Ethan, some even admired his confidence, but others steered clear. There was Sarah, a 25-year-old graphic designer who joined Peak Pulse to build her strength after a sedentary job left her feeling drained. She kept her head down, intimidated by Ethan's loud critiques of her form during group classes. Then there was Marcus, a 40-year-old firefighter who trained for his demanding job but bristled at Ethan's unsolicited advice, and Laya, a 19-year-old college student and aspiring powerlifter who'd once been mocked by Ethan for lifting to light despite her steady progress. These were the quiet undercurrents of Peak Pulse, dedicated people overshadowed by Ethan's larger-than-life presence. On this day, the gym was packed. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the high windows, casting long shadows across the rubberized floor. Ethan was in his element, holding court near the free weight section, where a small crowd of regulars hung on his every word. He'd just finished a set of heavy bench presses, flexing for effect as his admirers clapped. "That's how you do it," he declared, wiping sweat from his brow. "None of this half-rap nonsense you see around here." His eyes scanned the room, searching for someone to tease, someone to keep the spotlight on him. That's when the front door swung open, and in walked Jason Statham. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged anywhere he chose to be. Dressed in a simple black hoodie and navy sweatpants, Jason blended into the crowd, his face partially obscured by the hood. No one recognized him, not Sarah, stretching nervously by the cardio machines, not Marcus, adjusting his lifting belt near the squat racks, not Laya, meticulously chalking her hands for a deadlift. To them, he was just another guy, maybe a bit older, maybe a bit too calm for the high-energy chaos of Peak Pulse, but Ethan noticed him immediately. Something about Jason's unassuming presence irritated him, like a challenge he hadn't been invited to answer. Jason found a quiet corner near the stretching mats and began his warm-up, his movements precise and fluid. He rolled his shoulders, loosened his hamstrings, and sank into a deep lunge, oblivious to the chatter around him. Ethan, meanwhile, saw an opportunity. "Oi, mate," he called out, loud enough to turn heads. "You lost or something? This is a gym, not a yoga studio." A ripple of laughter followed, mostly from Ethan's loyal crew. Sarah glanced up, uncomfortable, while Marcus shook his head and muttered under his breath. Laya, focused on her barbell, didn't even look over. Jason didn't react. He switched to a side stretch, his breathing steady, his focus unbroken. Ethan's grin widened. This was going to be fun. Strutting closer, he planted himself a few feet from Jason. "Seriously, what's with the hoodie? You hiding something? Or just scared to show you've never lifted before?" More chuckles from the crowd, though some gym-goers exchanged uneasy glances. Ethan was in rare form, and they knew what came next, a verbal takedown meant to cement his status as the gym's alpha. But Jason wasn't playing along. He stood, rolling his neck, and met Ethan's gaze. "Just here to train," he said, his voice calm but firm, with a faint British edge that caught a few ears. The simplicity of it threw Ethan off. but only for a second. He recovered quickly, puffing out his chest. "Train, hung all right? Tough guy, let's see what you've got. How about you show us something worth watching?" The gym slowed, the energy shifting. Sarah paused her stretches, curious despite herself. Marcus leaned against a rack, arms crossed, sensing Ethan was about to bite off more than he could chew. Laya, now finished with her set, watched from the sidelines, her interest piqued by the stranger's unflappable demeanor. Ethan gestured toward a barbell loaded with 225 pounds, a respectable but challenging weight for most. "Start here," he said, smirking, "unless that's too much for you." Jason walked to the barbell, his steps unhurried. The crowd formed a loose semicircle, phones discreetly raised to capture what they expected to be Ethan's latest victory. Jason crouched, tested the bar with his fingers, and adjusted his stance. His movements were deliberate, almost meditative. Then, with a single, powerful pull, he lifted the bar. His back stayed straight, his core tight, his form textbook perfect. He held the weight for a beat, then lowered it with control, repeating the deadlift 3 times as if it were a warm-up. A murmur spread through the gym. Ethan's smirk faltered, but he waved it off. "Beginner's luck," he said loudly. "Anyone can pull that once. Let's see some real work endurance. Battle ropes, right now." He pointed to a station across the gym, where thick ropes lay coiled like sleeping snakes. Jason nodded, wiping his hands on his sweatpants, and followed Ethan through the crowd. The ropes were brutal, designed to torch stamina and expose weakness. Ethan grabbed them first, launching into a flurry of waves to show off. His arms pumped wildly, the rope slapping the floor with force, but his rhythm was erratic, more show than substance. He stopped after 30 seconds, breathing hard, and turned to Jason. "Your turn, hoodie, let's see 60 seconds. Jason picked up the ropes, his grip relaxed but firm. He started with steady waves, each motion controlled, the ropes moving in perfect sync. 30 seconds passed, then 45, then 60. He didn't stop. At 90 seconds, he shifted to double slams, the ropes crashing with thunderous precision. The gym was silent except for the rhythmic thudding. Every eye locked on Jason. At 2 minutes, he set the ropes down, barely winded. The crowd erupted, clapping and whistling. Sarah clapped too, a small smile breaking through her usual reserve. Marcus let out a low, "Well, damn." Laya, impressed, made a mental note to ask this guy about his training later. Ethan, red-faced, tried to laugh it off. "Not bad, not bad. But endurance is one thing, core's another. Plank challenge, 2 minutes. Bet you can't." Jason raised an eyebrow, but dropped into a plank without a word. His body was a straight line, shoulders strong, ABS locked. Ethan joined him, determined to save face. 1 minute passed. Ethan's arms trembled at 90 seconds, and he collapsed, cursing under his breath. Jason held steady, his breathing even. At 3 minutes, he was still solid. At 4, the crowd started counting aloud, for minutes 10. At 5, he rose smoothly, brushing his hands together as cheers exploded. Ethan was rattled now, his bravado cracking. "All right," he stammered, "let's try something else. Pull-ups, 10 clean ones." No kidding. He led Jason to a pull-up bar, hoping to reclaim control. Jason gripped the bar and flowed through 15 reps, 5 wide grip, 5 narrow grip, 5 one-handed, each one effortless, his muscles rippling under the hoodie. The gym roared, some shouting encouragement, others filming opally. Then it happened. A teenager in the crowd, scrolling on his phone, froze. "No way, that's Jason Statham." The name hit like a spark in dry grass. Whispers turned to gasps, phones shot up, and the gym buzzed with recognition. Sarah's jaw dropped. Her favorite action star was here. Marcus laughed, shaking his head. Laya's eyes widened. She'd been watching a master all along. Ethan's face went pale. He'd been taunting Jason Statham, a man whose real-life grit matched his roles in the Expendables and Crank. The revelation changed everything. Ethan's crew fell silent, their loyalty wavering. Jason, unfazed by the growing chaos, stepped back from the bar. Ethan, desperate to salvage his pride, pointed to a squat rack loaded with 400 pounds. "One last test," he croaked. "Squats, 5 reps, think you can?" Jason studied the bar, his expression unreadable. He stepped under it, positioned it across his shoulders, and lifted it off the rack. The gym hushed. He descended into the first squat, thighs parallel to the floor, then powered back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each rep was flawless, his strength undeniable. He racked the bar with a soft clang, and the crowd lost it, cheering like they'd witnessed a championship win. Ethan had nothing left. His shoulders slumped, his voice gone. Jason turned to him, extending a hand. "Good try," he said simply. Ethan hesitated, then shook it, mumbling, "I got it wrong. Badly." Jason nodded, then faced the crowd. "Strength's not just muscle," he said, his voice carrying a quiet authority. "It's discipline, respect, knowing when to lift and when to listen." The words landed hard. Sarah felt a weight lift. She didn't need to fear judgment anymore. Marcus nodded, respecting Jason's approach more than Ethan's bluster. Laya, inspired, vowed to train harder, not for show but for herself. Even Ethan's crew murmured in agreement, their view of him shifting. He'd ruled peak pulse with noise, but Jason had redefined it with action. But the day wasn't over. As Jason grabbed his bag, preparing to leave, a new figure emerged from the crowd. Coach Elena, the gym's veteran strength coach. At 55, Elena was a legend in her own right, with decades of powerlifting records and a no-nonsense demeanor that commanded respect. She'd been watching from the sidelines, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Hold up," she said, her voice cutting through the chatter. "You're not slipping out that easy, Statham." The crowd parted, intrigued. Elena wasn't like Ethan. She didn't taunt or mock. Her challenges were about growth, not ego. Jason paused, giving her a respectful nod. "What have you got in mind?" he asked, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Elena gestured to a corner of the gym rarely used, the strongman area, where tractor tires, atlas stones, and a yoke frame sat waiting. "You've shown power," she said. "Let's see grit. Tire flip, 100 yards. Then carry that yoke 500 pounds across the floor and back. No time limit, just heart." The gym buzzed with anticipation. This wasn't Ethan's showboating. This was Elena testing a peer. Jason set his bag down and walked to the tire, a massive black beast weighing 400 pounds. He crouched, dug his fingers under the rim, and heaved. The tire rose, teetered, and slammed forward, shaking the floor. 1 flip, 2, 3. He moved like a machine, relentless but controlled, covering the 100 yards in under 2 minutes. Sweat glistened on his brow, but his focus never wavered. The yoke was next. Jason strapped in, the 500-pound frame balanced across his shoulders. He took his first step, the weight testing every muscle, every joint. The crowd counted. His steps, 10, 20, 30. He reached the far wall, turned, and came back, setting the yoke down with a thud that echoed like a gavel. The gym erupted again, Elena clapping slowly, a rare grin on her face. "That's the real stuff," she said. "Respect." Jason caught his breath, nodding. "Appreciate the test," he said. Elena leaned in, lowering her voice. "You didn't just school the kid," she said, glancing at Ethan. "You reminded everyone here what this place is for. Keep that fire." Jason gave her a look of mutual understanding, to warriors acknowledging each other's craft. Ethan, watching from the sidelines, felt the weight of the moment. He'd spent years chasing applause, but Jason, and now Elena, had shown him something deeper. Strength wasn't about being the loudest. It was about showing up, day after day, for yourself and others. He approached Jason hesitantly. "I was a jerk," he said, his voice low. "Not just to you, to a lot of people here. I'm gonna do better." Jason studied him, then nodded. "Everyone starts somewhere," he said. "Keep at it." It wasn't absolution, but it was a challenge to grow. Ethan exhaled, a flicker of resolve in his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt small but not defeated. He felt like he could rebuild. As Jason headed for the exit, the gym came alive with chatter. Sarah approached Laya, emboldened. "Want to train together sometime?" she asked. Laya grinned. "Hell yeah." Marcus, inspired, decided to sign up for Elena's advanced class, ready to push his limits. Even Ethan's crew, once blindly loyal, started talking about Jason's words, questioning their own habits. At the front desk, the manager, a wiry man named Javier, who'd seen it all, caught Jason's eye. "You turned this place upside "Down," he said, chuckling. "In a good way." Jason shrugged, his grin easy. Just another workout. He pushed through the doors, leaving peak pulse forever changed. The gym settled back into its rhythm, but the air felt different. Sarah lifted with new confidence, unbothered by judging eyes. Laya hit a personal record, fueled by Jason's example. Marcus trained harder, respecting the process over the spotlight. And Ethan, quieter now, began coaching a beginner with patience he'd never shown before. Peak Pulse wasn't just a gym anymore, it was a place where strength meant more than muscle. Jason's visit became legend, a story retold in locker rooms and group classes. Not because he was a star, but because he'd walked in as one of them and left them better. True strength, they learned, wasn't about shouting "you're worth it," was about proving it, quietly, every day. It was about lifting others up, not tearing them down, and in that, Jason Statham had given Peak Pulse a lesson they'd carry forever.